All right, welcome everybody to a brand new variation of the David Adam Kurz Show, where politics, religion, and war are uncensored, unscripted, and undeniably funny. I've wanted to dive into this podcast for a very long time, but let's be honest. The last 4 years has felt like we've been led by The Walking Dead. And I wanted to be polite because I was taught that it's impolite to speak of the ill and who have passed. But now it's finally time to speak freely, boldly, and hilariously about the most controversial topics gripping our country in politics, religion, war, and maybe even some relationship drama while we're sprinkling in it for fun, right? Joining me to kick it off for some friends and co-hosts, first up is Charlie Suarez, a sharp mind, bold commentator, and someone never afraid to speak his truth. And alongside him is Marcos Cabral, also from PRMG, a man who blends sharp insight on finance and even sharper wit. Together, we'll unpack the madness, laugh at the chaos, and maybe even solve some problems or two along the way. So sit back, buckle up, and prepare to laugh, think, and be slightly uncomfortable. Because we're diving into politics, religion, and war. Uncensored, unscripted, and undeniably funny.
Welcome to the David Adam Kurz Show.
So great news, team, as we're geared up to do this inaugural episode and this new variant of the David Adam Kurz Show. We've compiled a list of 5 hot topics. But before we get to those topics, I think it'd be absolutely incredible if Marcos and Charlie introduce themselves to you guys. So I'll let you guys take it off. Marcos, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I'm Marcos Cabral, VP of Florida for PRMG, mortgage man extraordinaire, the most grayest guy in the room besides Charlie. Happy to be here, buddy. How are you? I love the energy. I'm loving the topics. Thank you, Charlie, for joining us, even though we didn't want you to be here. But
And it begins, ladies and
and
gentlemen.
it begins.
All right, my name is Charlie Suarez, and as you all know me, I am the divisional manager down here at PRMG, the state of Florida. I am for the Southeast, looking forward to growing Florida and the Southeast with PRMG at my back. And thank you, Marcos, for that great interruption.
That's what I do, buddy.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Mr. Salt and Pepper himself, that's why he's wearing
That's
a
why
hat.
I wear the hat.
He doesn't want the glare on that beautiful.
The fluorescent lighting makes me look like
salty
Cisco.
hair that he has. That's correct.
That's what it
You do
is.
look like-
Listen,
Hey,
guys, one day you're going to learn. Just for me.
Just for men. My hair grows so fast. I'll be just for menning every 2 days. It doesn't work for me, man.
You know, I had
We'll
a
keep it
YouTube
great.
video and somebody made a comment. They were like, "Oh, this guy definitely dyes his beard." And of course, I responded, "Of course I do. What's wrong with you? And like, do I want to look like Santa Claus? No,
Who
thank you."
doesn't?
I swear to God. By the way, I am a very fair-skinned guy with rosy cheeks. So when I let the beard come out all gray, like I swear, children look at me at the mall. Because it's not gray, it's white. You know what I mean? So if I sit there, I'm going to be asked for gifts. I can't buy everybody gifts.
They're going
like that.
They're going to sit on your knee.
Or
You can't allow
maybe
that.
they'll give you a little donation. Oh, poor guy, look. You know.
Salvation Army.
Poor guy only works once a year.
Here you go. Have
A little bit of money.
Santa, go get yourself some churros there at the mall, you know?
Oh, man.
Oh, man, guys, look, I appreciate you guys tuning in for this episode. It means a lot to me or to all of us here. And as you can tell, there's a lot of real estate sitting at this table. So anything you guys need, a mortgage from the PRMG side, to be shown homes by the Kurz team, or to work with New World Title on the title side, we are a complete team. So I want to let you guys know that before we begin. If you enjoy this episode, make some comments, subscribe, share it with your friends, let them know what we're doing. And by all means, DM us or contact us for any real estate related needs. So let's get into this right now. First thing I want to talk about, at Chatgate, which they named it something else. I can't remember what they named it. SignalGate.
SignalGate.
They named it SignalGate because
SignalGate.
it went out through Signal, which is a chat app for those of you that don't know. And this is like a big topic in national security in the digital age, right? Apparently, the way we would mistakenly put somebody in a chat message and then like talk shit about them while they're on the chat message is kind of what went down, except at a security level, which is right. So recently, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, which I love, by the way, inadvertently included journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, which is a crap journalist, in a Signal group that contained senior Trump administrative members. The mishap exposed confidential war plans, supposedly, allegedly, jeopardizing military personnel and violating national security protocols. So that is some of the topic that went out. What I find interesting is that they're making a bigger deal about this than, let's say, they ever made about Hillary Clinton's emails, right?
100%.
All the other leaks that
All the other leaks that have happened
that
over the
happened
last
out
4
there.
years,
Absolutely.
right? And
the president. That, I mean, if you look at the guy that we had there in charge that didn't remember absolutely nothing or knew what the heck was going on.
Walking Dead.
What more of an issue is that? Let's start from there, you know?
It's pretty sad.
Wait, we forgot. How about the guy that went to the hospital for what? Operation open heart surgery, dying on the table, and no one even knew that he wasn't around? the guy in charge of defense? Come on, man.
It's mind-blowing to me. First of all, the way I read this particularly, I read it on purpose this way. I said, the mishap exposed confidential war plans jeopardizing military personnel. But it really didn't.
No.
And the reason I read it that way was because that's how it came from the news. That's how the news promoted it. That's how media promoted it. And the truth is that there was no top secret information shared on there.
Not at all.
There were no real plans. It was basic information. Here's the real truth. The president of the United States has the capacity of unclassifying anything he wants.
Correct.
So if he goes to that and says, none of that's confidential information, none of that's classified,
Boom,
it is
done.
by far done. Like, it is not classified anymore.
Move
Where
on.
Jeffrey Goldberg, JG, which that's how he accidentally got put into the chat, because in Signal you could run through initials and he's in there as JG, right? First of all, piece of crap, in my opinion, because I think a real journalist with real integrity, and I know everybody wants the story, but a real journalist with real integrity at some point would have said, hey guys, I don't think I'm supposed to be in this one. You know what I mean? Like,
Can you remove it from the threads?
I think I was added incorrectly, guys.
And listen, by the way, I've seen enough movies where the wrong person learns confidential information and then that person no longer exists.
Exactly.
Right? Listen, I'm sorry. I don't want to be that guy. Right? Like, I don't want to be that guy.
They end up at the fish market.
I'm just saying, Trump is
What's
in charge.
crazy is what the guy should have at least done. It's social etiquette. At least put up the two googly eyes when you see. At least let us know that you're there and you're not supposed to be there. I mean, but at some point, like, we're probably the most advanced nation in the world, right? Mm-hmm. At some point, you would think that the government should have like their own version of a Signal app that is not out there for everybody else, right? Like, and you have like the Hillary Clinton emails, all these things. It's like they're kind of like on Stone Age, level when it comes to communication. It's kind of funny though to be part of that group chat. Can you think about the mind fuck that would be like? Like you inadvertently get added to a chat where they're like, yeah, we should bomb such and such at his girlfriend's house. I saw the story.
Yeah.
Did you see the story?
Yeah.
We should bomb it. This is his girlfriend's house. And we're kind of watching. It's like, that's kind of like a mindfuck where you're like, what the hell am I a part of right now? How did I even get added here?
I don't even want
By
to
the
be
way,
on
is
it.
this-
I don't want to, like you said, I don't want to be the next victim at the fish market. I don't want to see a grouper and then my head on next to the grouper on ice.
People have
No.
been unalived for less. Yeah. They've been unalived for less. Like, think about it. It's like, I would be afraid to read it and you're like, oh shit, I'm not supposed to be in this right
I
now.
wouldn't even open it.
No, dude, and by the way, how did not... listen, I'm going to say, Pete, I love you, bro. Pete, you messed up.
You shit the bed.
You messed up.
It's just
You messed up.
He
You
Of course
messed
he
up.
did.
He messed up. He knows it. Of course, when the interviews happened and he was asked about it, they just kind of kicked it off at no big deal kind of situation. I personally think he should have said, you know what? He shouldn't have been there. Owned it. I messed up.
Maybe it was on purpose. Maybe it was kind of like, let's see what happens. Let's go for some feathers.
It could have been.
Listen, no matter what this administration does, you already know everything's going to be attacked.
Yeah,
It
attacked.
does not matter
Attacked.
what it is, right?
Gonna be to another
You're going
level.
to expect that kind of those
Exaggeration will be
articles.
another
And
level.
you're going to expect that. Everything that happens, they're going to downplay everything from the left. And anything that happens with this administration, they're going to exaggerate it.
They're
to
gonna
the
attack
fullest
it. They're gonna
every
attack it.
single time.
I mean, it goes to show, like when Trump spoke to the House, and he had, the girl that was paralyzed because she got hit by
And
a
no one
volleyball,
clapped.
and no one clapped on the Democratic side.
No.
That is just nasty to me. Or the little boy who I think he had cancer, right?
Yeah.
And
They
they
wanted to
made
be a
him
police officer.
an honorary Secret Service. Dude,
And they just stared.
I don't care who you are.
They just, yeah.
That is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't care who you are. But it was because it was Trump that it was a horrible thing.
100%.
And it's funny that you
I
mentioned
love
how
the way he called it out, too.
he
He
did.
exposed
He
it.
did.
He goes, it doesn't matter what I do. This side will never clap.
Yeah, he said, I think he said, I could cure the most deadliest disease and bring you the cure, and this side still won't clap.
Right.
100%.
Right?
But you know what?
That was
It's
a mic
sad.
drop
But
moment,
it's
too.
sad,
but it's
though.
a good thing because the public out there gets to see who they really are. That's the best. The thing is, you can't say, hey, Trump brought them down. No, they're bringing themselves down by their own actions.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone's seeing. Everyone's seeing how they really react to a lot of these things. And it's ridiculous. And it's showing in the polls, it's showing everywhere that they got to either have a complete mind change of what they're going to do going forward, or otherwise, I don't know. There might only be one party going forward.
Listen, the Dems are definitely not going to have the next election if what's happening right now continues to move forward. I think, first of all, let me say two things. Number one, if AOC is supposed to be the head of this, yeah, give me a break.
That's like me being the head
Give
of
me
the
a break.
Republican Party.
Give me a
I'm
break.
back.
Like, this is, you know what I mean? And then if she goes up to run against whoever's going to run next time, which potentially could be our vice president, right?
100%.
If she goes up against the vice president, the only way she gets ahead is if Trump can't figure out today's market.
Correct.
If Trump messes up the economy, it doesn't matter how much good he does.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the same for any president, right?
Absolutely.
Any president messes up the economy, the entire country's at a rate, because if I'm not making money and I can't spend money and I can't take care of my family, then
And I can't
Then when you
retire.
change.
that's a problem.
And I can't
you know?
retire. Yeah.
Speaking of retirement and speaking of
I like the way you
Stone
said,
Age.
speaking of retirement. And you pointed at him.
I can't retire. Not me. I'm talking about you, Marcus. You're the one who keeps saying about retiring, not me.
Listen, speaking of retirement and Stone Age, it's funny that you mentioned, like, shouldn't the government have their own app, like something that they
Their own
communicate
secure portal to be able to
I feel
communicate
like they
things.
do, though. Don't
They
they, have
should.
secure emails and
So
secure
Pete just said,
messaging?
ask her that shit. I don't
Yeah,
deal
he
with
just
that.
kind of said,
I want to go on my own
Signal's
thing.
safe enough.
Signal's safe enough.
Which, by the way, it probably is, except for the fact that he added another person in there that shouldn't have been
Listen,
in there.
the thing is,
Right.
if there's anyone that can be added that is not part of the government, you should probably not be using that app. Is all I'm
I
saying.
agree.
Right?
But then we're talking about the same government that retires people by sending an elevator down a shaft
A shaft.
all the way to the bottom
Of a
and
cave.
of a cave where files are kept.
Paper
This is the same government where files are kept in paper,
and paper.
not computer, but in paper, and they can only retire, I think it's 10,000 people a month or something like that. And the only reason they can, and people will sit and wait for retirement for 8-9 months sometimes. And the only reason it takes so long, right? So Doge came out and said the only reason that they can't do more is because it's based on the speed of the elevator going down the shaft. That's what it's based on. It's based on the speed and capacity of how much
Can we
they
get an
carry
Otis
the
guy
elevator.
in there? Otis
That's what I
elevators?
mean.
Can you come in there?
Archaic for some things and not archaic for others. Some of the stuff just doesn't make sense.
But that whole thing doesn't make sense to me. I can't believe, first of all, it would take, I don't know, 3 people and a little cart and a supercomputer to go down that elevator one time, plug it in, and put all the shit in the computer, right? Go, hey, Elon, can you create some software that will scan all this information? Oh, wait a minute. Isn't that ChatGPT, right? But get more secure. Can we create something that I can scan those information? It'll go into a system that files it for me and use AI technology, right? Like, dude, give me a break. Are you kidding me?
They can put everything in a box this big.
Even smaller, probably.
And you don't need a cave for that.
At all.
But maybe that's the cave to save the world. And they're just looking at it like it's a retirement. And that's where all of them are going to go when the world starts ending.
Have you seen Paradise?
I
That
started
sounds
to
like
see
the
that
show.
show.
That sounds like the show Paradise. Watch that show on Paradise, Hulu. It's crazy, but that's exactly what that reminds me of. What bugged me out about the whole thing regarding the Signal topic is we don't know which side to believe. Were we discussing war plans or not? Because some of the stuff apparently was pretty specific. They were talking about the planes that were going to be used, where they're bombing, what they're bombing, the whole thing. So it's like, what is behind? Was it just a little bit of a slip up, and you were discussing war plans? But then how does that compare to the Hillary Clinton emails where that wasn't encrypted either? Why is one worse than the other?
Well, I mean, all right. So first of all, I read the chats because once Trump said it wasn't classified, then Jeffrey Goldberg went out and put the whole thing out.
Right.
And now he was classy enough to leave out things he thought would be classified. When he first put it out there.
Okay.
But when the president said, it's not classified, then he was like, all right, cool. I'm putting it out there. And there really wasn't a lot of information that would have hurt or affected the mission at all, or that would have been secretive to anybody. We were bombing the Houthis. That hit the news. Everybody knew that, right? We're going to go after them. We wanted control of the waterway. We were tired of them having control of the waterway. So what did we do? We went on full attack. Everyone knew that was going to happen. What happened was that Jeffrey got first vision view of real-time progress, right? So it was like where the rest of the world didn't, right? Like, hey, guys, looks like things are going down at this time. And then, mission accomplishment. Looks good. Like, that was the kind of stuff. And interpret it, you knew exactly what they were talking about.
I like the transparency. I think it's like no different than Trump on X saying, I'm doing this. No,
I'm for it.
Right?
I'm for it.
I'm doing this. It is what it is. Now, obviously, certain things cannot come out. But obviously, I think that was not Pete's intention. I think
I don't think so. I think
it was a slip
But you asked another question. You said, why is this different than, let's say, Hillary's emails?
Yeah.
It's because it's Trump.
100%.
Right? Because it's not Hillary, because it's not Obama.
Of course.
Right? Because it's Trump.
100%.
That's 100% the difference. There's no other reason why this would be
anything
worse.
that happens with this administration will be exaggerated to the next level, even if it's something small.
100%.
Unless it's something great like curing cancer, and then that'll get swept under the rug and nobody will even know about it.
So what do we do to stop things like this from being knucklehead? I agree with you. I think they should have something internal. I think it should be something internal.
I agree.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
I agree.
Like something that again, like you said, you can't add. If they're not a part of the government, they're not part of the team.
They should not be able to have access.
Look, you're always going to have the risk of someone leaking it out.
Always.
It happens. When you have more than 3 people in there, that's it. It's going to happen. Can it happen? Yes. It doesn't matter what system they use.
But it's hearsay unless you see it.
Right. But the chances of happening are much less than what's going on now with SignalGate or SignGate, what they're using. So, I mean, change it around, do something different. It's time to modernize some of the stuff the government has. We know that for a fact.
I think they have a lot of bright people in their network now that they can enhance.
I mean, I think Billionaires Row sat when Trump was being sworn in.
Did you see? It was
and everyone on Billionaires Row is capable
of
building that for the government. Probably for free.
Listen, I saw that first cabinet meeting. All I could think about is this guy just assembled the Avengers. I'm watching a Marvel movie right now. Look at Iron Man over here. You got the Hulk over there. I mean, you have enough brain power to do some things. So they definitely do. 100%.
Now I got to relook at that as the Avengers. That's awesome.
It's the Avengers.
That is awesome.
That's what he assembled over there, dude. I'm telling you.
That is awesome.
I'm telling you.
All right, guys, let's go into the executive order on the Smithsonian. Everybody's familiar with the American History Basic Museum. President Donald Trump issued an executive order titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, targeting the Smithsonian Institution. The order accuses the Smithsonian of promoting divisive and anti-American ideologies, particularly on race and gender issues, and seeks to remove such content from exhibits. How do we look at this? Is this an attempt to preserve patriotism or an act of censorship?
So, and I was reading this up a few times, and I'm trying to dig into the Smithsonian and everything else. It's kind of an act of censorship, right? And it's not that I'm against what he's doing, because I understand what he's doing. So it's a little bit of both, right? It's a little bit of both is what I think. Because at the end of the day, what you don't want is for these ideologies and all that to catch any wind anymore, right? It's kind of like, we got to put this to bed. Let's move towards a brighter path. But if it's part of our history, right, then are we trying to erase history? Because, I mean, it's pretty divisive when you look at the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. We're not deleting any of that stuff. That's pretty divisive when you think about it, right?
Absolutely.
So, but what are we going to do? We're going to erase that history as well. So how far is too far, right? So it's kind of like a little bit of both. I understand it from the patriotism side, but on the other hand, it is part of history. So why are we trying to eliminate that? Now, I don't know the exact specifics on what's being displayed.
So let's go into the targets, right? National Museum of African American History and Culture, criticized for exhibits that, according to the administration, present a revisionist perspective of American history. Smithsonian American Women's History Museum, the order mandates that the museum should not recognize transgender women, aligning with the administrative stance on gender identity. And the American Art Museum, specifically the exhibit The Shape of Power, Stories of Race and American Sculpture, has been highlighted as promoting divisive ideologies. So it says here, the executive order also directs that the Secretary of Interior to restore federal monuments and statues that have been removed or altered in the past 5 years, particularly those related to Confederate figures. The move is intended to counteract what administration views as attempts to distort American history through the removal of such monuments, right? Now, there's some stuff here, like, let's go censorship versus patriotism. Is the executive order an effort to preserve national pride, or does it constitute censorship in historical narratives, right? So now there's this whole thing. Look, guys, I subscribe to, there's men and there's women. That's what I subscribe to. Period of story. If you want to be transgender, I have no problem with you. I just don't need your ideology pushed on me the same that I shouldn't push my ideology on you.
100%.
And by the way, I believe that across the board. I believe it in gender, in sex, in ideas, in religion, in race. I believe it in all different kind of aspects. You believe what you believe.
We're all different.
And I believe what I believe. And even if it's different, doesn't mean that I have to push you have to believe what I believe, or I have to believe what you believe. It doesn't work that way. There will never be a time in the history of the world or the future of the world where we all believe one thing. It's just not going to happen.
100%.
It's not human nature.
But that's what makes our country so great.
Of course. That's what makes the world great, by the way, right? And so if we're not those people, right, then why is it that we have to push these ideas and these ideologies on people? I subscribe to the men and women. I believe that, yes, the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum should not highlight transgender women.
I agree with that.
I think they should have their own museum. If they want to have a museum,
I agree.
They should have their own. They should have their own, and they can bring in whoever they feel that's adequate to be part of the museum and create a beautiful museum. And people who actually agree with it and want to see it, then they can come and expose them, whatever they have, and they can come see it and enjoy it and take your family. There's nothing wrong with that. Should there be one? Absolutely, 100%. But put it where it belongs. That's it.
I'm with you. I believe that. I believe
put it where
that.
it belongs.
I'm with you. I think that's such a great idea to think about. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to force it into down everyone's throat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't believe it should be in schools. There's this thought process of bringing religion back to America and make it Christian, which we'll talk about that again. And I believe in that. I just believe in it. I believe a world without religion creates chaos.
I agree,
I agree with you too.
Right?
agree, too.
mean, listen, the Bible was created for a reason. What was the name of that movie? Was it with Will Smith? Was it Will Smith?
The one
where the Bible, they got rid of all the Bibles and the world went crazy.
Yeah.
I think it was Will Smith.
What was it called?
That he was blind, and he learned.
Yes.
He had a Braille Bible.
Yes.
He had the last
Yeah, okay.
the last Bible.
Was it Will Smith?
I think it was Denzel.
Denzel.
It was Denzel.
And they had the last Bible, and they had to track it across.
Yeah, he was
and
trying to get
yeah,
it through the print
desert,
press.
I
and the
remember
desert
that.
and the
And
whole
then he
thing.
got to the end, and
Yeah,
he
yeah,
actually
yeah.
read the Bible
Yeah,
to them,
yeah.
or rehearsed it because he knew it by heart. But I believe that to be true. I believe if you get rid of all religion, the world goes nuts. I believe that human nature, we have to believe in something.
Absolutely.
And that belief requires us to pay attention to what's happening in the world. But I don't believe that we need to fight about it.
Yeah. Well, I believe a lot of religion was removed, and look how crazy things got already.
And that's why.
I think that's why they're trying to institute it back in, though.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, no, hold on. We need God in our lives because
some things belong in the
You need a
school and some
motivative
things
system
don't.
to wake you up every morning and be motivated on something. And I think that's a big component.
And that leads to the second thing where I was talking about how should history be presented in national institutions. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Look, history is history. We can't erase what happened in the past. Okay? It's out there for you to see what it used to be before. Okay, I agree. You can go in there, you see it. And then there should be something for what's happening now, for the beliefs that have actually rise now and they're happening now. So can you combine both together? I would actually leave one as it is and then create the new one. That's it.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more history created every single day that maybe 60 years from now, our kids will, our kids will be able to see it. Okay. But it's something different. But to combine it and to eliminate, I don't believe in that. I do, agree that all those statues should be put back on. Those who were there for many, many years, why did we remove them? Because a small group didn't believe in them or didn't want to see them? No.
And it's unfortunate.
And if you want to put one for one of them, if they want to create one of their own, then put their own. Put it in your park. Put it wherever you want. It's fine.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be stopped either. You shouldn't censor them there for that.
And somebody might get mad at this and say, oh, my God, guys, are you telling me you believe what the Confederates stood for? No. I'm not telling you I believe what the Confederates stood for. I'm telling you that they are a part of American history.
Correct. Just
right?
like the Indians
Just like
were.
the Indians.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree with you.
Just like the Indians were.
But I also think that there's a certain level of, man, we can go like crazy deep on this, but there's a certain level of censorship that happens through all history, right? There's certain parts of history that get cut out because somebody goes, this one's too much for the world, right?
Exactly.
Look, I'm going to take the most sacred book in the world, right? Yeah. I'm going to take the most sacred book in the world, the Bible, and I think we can all agree it's incomplete.
Correct.
Right? It was designed, the way it was designed to send the message it was designed to send.
Right.
Period in the story.
Exactly.
And there are a bunch of books that were pulled out where somebody went, I don't know, that one doesn't really go with our values. You know what I mean? What were you going to say?
I was going to say, my daughter went to Catholic school. She was fortunate enough that we were able to afford it. She went there. And I was really against it at the very beginning. I wanted her to go to regular public school and stuff like that. And my wife fought me on it because, we sold the house. We moved to a neighborhood because of the schools. And in fact, she never did. She ended up going to private school. And I always used to tell her all the time, hey, can you ask your teacher, how can you confirm that everything that's on the Bible and the Bible is actually correct? She used to laugh at me and go, oh, my God, Dad, you're in your theories. I go, no, I just want to know. I want to know because when you read different Bibles, they have different stuff.
Yeah.
They're different.
Yeah. Oh,
everybody puts their own, I would say, spin to it and a little bit different. So how do we confirm? And if you look at it, there's really no way of confirming any of that. Same thing as history. How many things in history we're talking about that they said this is what really happened, and how do we know that's the way it really happened?
Yeah, we don't.
You don't.
We don't. We know the story that we're told.
Right. We don't. I can say today, Marco's hat looks good, and then you can say tomorrow, hey, Marco wore the funniest hat ever, and Louis over there will say, Marco's looked like a monkey with that hat. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be three different stories. How do we really know what was the real truth of it? He's just hiding his grace from his hair. That's it. That was the truth of it. That's the whole truth of it.
Boils down to the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
People ask me all the time, man, that's your staple. You always wear a hat, the hat and the beard, that's your staple. And I'm like, yeah. And what I'm really doing is hiding the fact that I only have 4 hairs left. So,
it looks good though.
Call it what you want, man.
It looks good.
Oh man. Listen, I'm in total agreement with what you just said. We need to respect the things that are happening right now in the world. And by the way, get your own thing.
Yeah.
Right? If a man can have a museum, a woman can have a museum, veterans can have a museum, musicians can have a museum, right?
Yeah.
Like all the wax statues can have a museum, right? Like if all of these different things have, the science has a museum, history, world history, or was it natural history has a museum, right? Where they talk about dinosaurs that no one ever saw, but we all assume we know what they look like, right? Like, you know, they probably spoke for all we know. Like, you know,
100%.
T-Rex was like, yo, dog, what are you doing here? Right? Like,
Listen,
we
T-Rex used to eat the cavemen. Should we delete the T-Rex from the museum?
Right, it's
too?
horrible,
I mean, come
horrible,
on.
horrible.
It's crazy. But look, ultimately, I think that what Trump is trying to do is just restore order, right?
Yeah.
Things got a little wacky last 4 years. He's just trying to restore order and common sense. I think that's where he's trying. Does he?
Common sense is the best thing.
That's it. That's all. That's really what he's trying to accomplish right now, right? Like this doesn't make sense. We're eliminating it, right? He's trying to restore common sense.
But don't we do that on a daily basis? We do that. We do that. You do that in your own business. You do that in your own business.
Yeah.
If you can't afford it, then what are you doing?
100%.
Well, you're going to keep getting credit cards and opening more debts and debts and debts, and then you're going to go what? Oh, let me file Chapter 7 because it's so easy to file Chapter 7 and not start again 3 years from now.
Right.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, but unfortunately, the federal government can't follow Chapter 7. Okay?
Yeah.
We can't.
Yeah.
So you got to make cuts. Bottom line. Clinton did it, and it worked beautiful.
Yeah.
Clinton and Gore did it, and it worked amazing when they made all those cuts.
Listen, by the way, like a lot of people are looking at Trump and criticizing Trump for Doge, and you're right. Clinton did it. Obama spoke about it, gave a whole speech about it. Hillary said she was going to do
Actually,
it.
Obama wanted to do it. He never did it.
He never did
Yeah,
it.
he did it.
Never did
He
it.
spoke about it. He gave
And
a whole
he spoke
speech about
a
it.
whole speech about it. Never
Right?
did it.
And cutting fraudulent waste and et cetera, et cetera. He even
100%.
gave it a name. I forgot what it was named. Like it wasn't as cool as Doge.
It wasn't as cool as cool. It was like economic something.
Yeah, it was like the economic
cool.
cut, federal
Yeah.
funding, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Listen,
Doge is cool.
While we're on the topic of Doge, what do you think about, and I have, you know, I guess my own opinions, obviously, but what do you guys think about cutting the federal school board?
I actually, me personally, I think that this always, if you go back to history, talking about history, the school board was run from the states. It was always a state mandate. Your state knows better than anyone else what you need in your state.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in Florida, if our weakness in Florida, let's say it's mathematics, right? Then the state can actually make a program where we're gonna, really go into the math issues and maybe it's having history 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week. We're going to cut it to 2 hours and give another hour of math. Your state knows exactly by the grades and the scores of those tests what you need. So why wouldn't we give the power to the state to make our education locally better? That I don't understand. To me, it's nothing to do with the money. It's right now who really knows what your state needs.
It's who can do better for the children of the state.
Exactly. Exactly.
These people have such big egos that they put themselves before the children. And that's what it really boils down
100%.
to, right? So the Department of Education, look,
Did you see a report, not to cut you out, did you see a report that it was like 79 billion was spent on like parties and like lunches?
It's insane. No, it's
79
not
billion.
It's
But
not
then
really.
the teachers are buying their own craft papers and stuff to do with the kids.
Teachers
Their own
have-
money because there's not enough money for them.
Teachers
How
have
does that
low
happen?
pay.
Make it
Yeah.
make sense.
Teachers have low pay, have one of the most important jobs in the world, have low pay, and then they have to go and buy their own shit.
Exactly.
You're right.
But then you have a department up there in government is making a fortune for sitting around and doing what?
Nothing.
Doing what? Because if you tell me, hey, man, we have the best education in the whole world. We're top one in the whole world. Math, English, reading, spelling, science, everything. I say, okay, you know what? They're doing their job. But we're not.
Right.
We're in the bottom. So they're definitely not doing their job. So, yeah, eliminate each one of them, take it back to the states, give those teachers a raise, give the teachers the money they need to get the material for the schools, for the classroom.
Teachers are
and take it from
definitely-
there. Yes,
they're
that's
extremely
one of the
underpaid.
underpaid jobs in
A
the
lot
world.
of teachers are already even looking at getting out of the profession.
Yeah.
Not to
Do
mention,
you know how many teachers I know are realtors?
I bet. It's insane. You need that secondary income. Most of
need
them
it.
cannot afford to live on their own and provide for a family on what they earn.
My mom retired 34 years as a teacher.
But think about it this way. What's going to happen now with the next generation? people, they're not going to want to become teachers.
Absolutely
Because they
not.
already know. So where's the end game?
Where do you draw
for
the line?
this, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's the end game? Who's going to teach our kids in the future, right? When it's going to be a profession where they don't, it's going to be ChatGPT basically in your home.
Man, it's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting.
It's going to be
It's got to
insane.
go back to the States.
You know, I think I have a little bit of a different twist on it. I do 100% agree that the state needs to monitor their education program. I also think that there should be a federal overlay, but it should be like a max of 10 employees with one guy who's like the director of education. Get rid of Department of Education, but like the director of education. And this guy's sole job is to make sure that all the states meet at least the bare minimum goal,
Requirements.
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, states, you have flexibility, but I'm telling you that as a country, we want our students to be here, right? What you do above and beyond that
That's our
is
future.
I trust you with that,
Right.
right? But I'm not going to allow you to put someone in charge of your state, a governor of your state, that is, I don't know, we'll just call it far left or whatever the case is, that decides they want to take the education level down here because they want to focus on teaching, transgender education and things of that nature. No, there's going to be a minimum requirement. And there's going to be things allowed in the school and things not allowed in the school. And as a country, that's our rule. After that, what you do with your education is up to you as a state.
And the curriculum needs changing. I mean, let's
Yes.
call it what it is, but it's
Yes.
antiquated. We don't
Yes.
teach our kids about money. We don't teach our kids about credit. We don't teach our kids about anything. Absolutely nothing for the real world. I am 41 years old. I have not used an obtuse triangle yet since I graduated high school.
Or a checkbook.
I mean, let's call it what it is.
Or a checkbook.
The Pythagorean theory, whatever the hell that thing is, I haven't seen it once since I graduated high school. We gotta change up the curriculums to this new modern age. You gotta change the curriculum.
They're teaching them the test. That's what's going on right now. The federal government said, we're going to implement this test.
But it's the
to
same test for
monitor
how many years?
what all the kids are doing. And the teachers,
It
and then
needs
the
an
teachers are
adjustment.
told, by the way, that if all the students in their class pass the test at a certain level, then the school gets a bonus.
Right.
And if the school gets a bonus, then the teachers get a little bonus. And so for that extra $2,000 that year that those teachers are going to make in bonus, they're going to teach the test.
Right.
They're not going to leave the paradigm of that test because
Right.
if they
Yeah,
do,
they're in the box.
they're risking
Stay in the
losing their
box.
$2,000.
Right.
And for a teacher, $2,000 is a lot of money. That's a good bonus. That's summer money,
Yeah.
because in many states,
or
they'll get
money
paid
to
in the
buy
summer.
or money to buy the crafts and stuff they need for the next year class.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. So Florida proposes child labor law changes addressing labor shortages.
I love this one. I love that one.
All right. In response to labor shortages caused by strict immigration enforcement, Florida lawmakers have proposed legislation allowing children as young as 14 years old to work overnight shifts without breaks, even on school nights. The initiative aims to fill the employment gaps left by deported immigrant workers, but has raised significant concern amongst child labor advocates and educators. Thoughts? This is going to be a blast.
So basically, you know what the saying is, right? So the baby boomers worked 40 years at one job. Millennials work 40 jobs in 1 year.
Yeah.
And the Gen Zs, they wonder why jobs even exist. So, so the whole issue is people don't want to work. So that's why they don't want to work. Then they don't understand why they have to work, right? There's a different mentality now.
Now the
with
next
this newer
generation's gonna start
generation.
school-
Now
start working at
they're going to
14.
start working at 14 years old because it's like nobody else wants to work. The boomers can't handle this work. The millennials are all over the freaking place, and Gen Z, they just want to picket all day long somewhere, protesting something. So nobody wants to work. So now this is where we're getting to, where we got to bring in 14-year-olds to do
to do the labor
That's
work.
just
by the way.
insane. It just doesn't even make any sense. First of all, the overnight thing, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
When I was in college, it's the reason why I dropped out. I had an overnight job and I couldn't make my 7 a.m. class. So I had to drop out of college. You put 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, whatever it is, working overnight, they're not going to graduate. They're not going to make much of themselves. They need their education first. I agree with a part-time job. Something to just kind of learn the workforce, learn money.
They should lower it down to 14.
That's
I agree with
okay.
that. Yeah.
That's fine, right? You can be an ice cream shop
I'm
serving
going to
some
follow
ice
up on
creams.
this one and see what the requirements. I know that a lot of changes were made to some of the stuff that they were proposing. It's on the floor, by the way. It's past 2 of the houses
Already?
Yes.
Poof.
Okay. So I'm going to follow up on that to see really exactly what is the requirement, because there were a lot of stuff that were put that they couldn't do in there. But
It's just a huge
listen, I
labor
was 16.
shortage that they got.
I was at the age where the minimum was 16. I had to wait until I was 16. 16 in one day, I went and applied at a job.
Yeah, I did the same.
I wanted to work at 15.
Yeah.
Why? Because the needs my parents had, they worked to maintain a family, a big family. But if I wanted anything else by myself, I had to get it myself.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to have a car, I had to pay for my own insurance.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go. I do agree there shouldn't be no overnights, none of that stuff. But, I needed to go out to work, and I had to wait until I was 16.
The overnight thing is insane to me.
It's insane.
I think for me, that's the craziest part, because I had my first job when I was 14 years old. And in New York, you were allowed to work at 14 in the summer.
Right.
Right? So you get a summer job, not an overnight job, but like a summer part-time job, right? And so because my mom was a school teacher, I ended up working at the school she was at, PS, whatever. And my job as a 14-year-old was to get the mail from the mailboxes and then go deliver it to the teachers' classrooms.
Right.
And that's what I did for like 3 days a week all summer when I was 14 years old. I think that's solid. I mean, for me,
It teaches you responsibility.
and as an older person, I look at my kids and I go, I was been working since I was 14 years old, you lazy,
So let me ask you, so you really think that this is happening because of the deported immigrants?
Man, I don't know.
So are they going to go?
I don't think it has anything to do with
I
that.
think it has nothing to do with it either.
I think Marius is more in line with what it's really about, which is that there's not enough people to
There's not
actually
enough
work.
people to do the work. They don't
I
want to
agree.
work. People don't want to work. If you tell someone right now, listen, this is an entry-level position, reception, whatever it is, they kind of look at you like, like, are you serious? Like, you're not doing it. Nobody wants to work. Nobody believes in working their way up into anything anymore.
Nobody, by
They
the way.
want to be at the top right now, day one.
Instant gratification,
Instant gratification.
no mentor needed.
Plus, YouTube kids
Wait
make
a minute.
$30 million a year, so they want to
But you
just do
forgot,
YouTube.
you forgot another one.
What?
They all want to work out of the house.
Everyone wants to
yeah.
work out of the house,
Yep.
Or the Starbucks.
which they don't really work.
Or Starbucks. That's so funny you said that,
Starbucks.
because
They
my
all wanna work
daughter
there.
is obsessed. She's 17 years old, and she's obsessed with getting a job at Starbucks.
Yeah,
And
it's like a cult. The whole
I
Starbucks
want her to
thing.
work. My wife doesn't want her to work because she's a junior in high school, and she's volleyball, she's after school tutoring, like she tutors, she's taking college
got a lot going on.
courses. She's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my wife feels like if she inserts a job, something's gonna
Of course,
gonna
probably.
hurt,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know.
sure.
And so she's gonna sacrifice a college course because she wants to go work at
Exactly.
Starbucks. We don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, but for her, it's interesting. She grew up in our house. In our house, we preach hustle.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
preach work. We preach like, hey, by the way, you live here because I'm never home.
Right.
Right? Like, remember when all your friends came over, you guys hung out in the living room all day, and you watched my Netflix that I paid for, and then you jumped in my pool that I paid for, and
you
it
ate my burgers.
And remember how clean it was because I paid for a guy to come clean it. Remember how when you got out, you didn't get any infections because we put the proper chlorine in there. You know what I mean? And you ate my burgers, and you had my fries, and then you asked me to Uber Eats you sushi. Remember that?
And I paid $20
That's
for the feed.
For one roll.
Yeah.
So check it out. Florida currently considering legislative changes to child labor laws as address labor shortages, particularly in sectors impacted by recent immigration policies. So you said there were some changes.
So they're gonna lay
it's-
tile.
Yeah.
It's just,
They're gonna build a house.
Pick crops.
I just immediately
what are
thought
we
Homestead
talking
in
about?
Florida City.
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
So they're gonna be in front of Home Depot waiting for someone to pick them up. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
All right,
the
here we
biggest
go.
thing that it probably is gonna impact all these immigration is those jobs that nobody else wants to do or has the ability to do.
Here we go. It says proposed changes. Apparently, this is SB 918 and HB 1225. Eliminate hour restrictions. Allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work unrestricted hours, including overnight shifts on school nights, and remove the 30-hour weekly cap during the school year. Modify break requirements. Remove the mandate for a 30-minute meal break for minors working over 4 consecutive hours, so they can't eat anymore, by the way.
That's crazy.
Expand exemptions for younger teens. Permit 14 and 15-year-olds who have graduated from high school or are homeschooled or enrolled in virtual school to work without the current restrictions on hours and times.
There you go.
So there we go. I still think that's a problem, by the way.
But let me tell you something. When I worked, and you worked an 8-hour shift, you had a half an hour lunch.
Yep.
And you had 2 15-minute break.
Yep.
So that 30-minute lunch or 30-minute break for 4 hours, that's new because that never existed before.
But it says for minors working over 4 consecutive hours. So you worked an 8-hour shift,
8-hour
over your
shift,
4
4.
hours, you got your 30-minute break.
Correct.
So I think it's necessary to eat when you work an 8-hour day. You know, it says proponents, including Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Jay Collins, argue that these changes will help migrate labor shortages exacerbated by stricter immigration enforcement, which has reduced the availability of undocumented workers in sectors like hospitality and agriculture. You said it, picking tomatoes and stuff. They contend
Hospitality.
and hospitality.
You know what that means.
Yeah, maids, cooks, all that stuff. Allow
Housekeeping.
teenagers to work more hours, provides valuable work experience, and supports family incomes. So critiques, same critiques we had, educational impact, right? Those extended hours may negatively affect students' academic performance, health and well-being. Increased work hours could lead to sleep deprivation and heightened stress amongst teenagers. I have my own opinion. Potential for exploitation. So relaxing child labor laws may increase the risk of exploitation and workplace injuries amongst minors, particularly in hazardous industries.
So I look at it 2 ways. Here's some things.
Seems
So-
extreme.
Well, I'll tell you, it seems
quite
extreme,
extreme. It seems a
but
bit
look at this.
extreme.
Look at this way.
Listen,
One,
4 hours a day at an ice cream shop, I agree.
Yeah.
Hospitality, housekeeping
what?
at a hotel.
But by the way,
that's
some-
Are you
another
gonna
thing.
allow? Are you gonna allow your 14 or 15-year-old daughter to go clean rooms at a hotel?
No, absolutely not.
not especially not the ones in Okeechobee. That's for sure.
With a blue light.
But think about this. But think about this. It's gonna wake up a lot of things. So those kids are gonna see what real labor is and what these people do. Okay, that's one. Okay, the other thing is, we're gonna go into a group of individuals now who are actually going to pay taxes for their labor
Yeah.
because they're not working under the table, as we know, because they don't have a status. How do they get paid?
Right.
What taxes do they pay?
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll get to appreciate their parents a little bit more of the hard work that they've done.
That's what I was thinking.
And push them to go to college. Think about it.
That's what I was
Look
thinking.
at the positive part of it. To an extent.
I agree with you. I don't agree with 14 and 15-year-olds, even if you're homeschooled, working all night long.
No, that's a lot. They're working at UPS loading and unloading.
Yeah, or Amazon warehouses or whatever the case is. But I agree with you 100%. I agree. I appreciated how hard my stepfather worked, who didn't have an education, so he worked at a building downtown in maintenance, right? Basically, he cleaned the building, right? In downtown in New York. And my mom went to school relentlessly, became a school teacher, kept going to school because she wanted, like my mom, I made, as an adult, I made fun of my mom one day because she wanted to go for her PhD. She has a specialist degree. So she has a bachelor's, a master's, and a specialist degree. And I go, how much of a raise do you get for getting your PhD? And she said it was like something like $4,000 a year.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, do you realize your PhD is going to cost you like 30 grand?
Right.
And do you realize how many years you'd have to put in just to recover that money?
Right.
And not, you wouldn't even like you're not going to take the extra $4,000 a year and put it towards the loan. So it's going to take you 20 years to recover.
Right.
Because you got to pay off that loan.
Now, was it more about the extra $4,000 a year, or more because I reached this goal that I had?
I think it was a little both. I think there was a little bit of ego in there where she wanted to be doctor.
PhD,
right?
100%.
But also it was unnecessary, right? Like I remember I was going to go for my PhD. And when I signed up for it, my dean actually called me. And he goes, "What are you doing?" I was signing up for my PhD. He goes, "For what?" Right? This is my dean of the school, who should be saying, "Great job, buddy." Right? But he knew my goal was to be a business person.
Right.
And he goes, "If you get a PhD in business, you're basically saying you want to be a professor."
Right.
And he goes,
Wow.
"You don't need a PhD to run a business." He goes, "You don't need the master's to run a business."
Right.
But you got it for free because you're in the military, so I didn't say anything. You know, he goes, "Just go. Like, go figure it out.
Go
now.
figure
Fly.
You know?
Go work.
It's like,
Stop
you know?
going to school.
Be
You don't
gone.
need to be the eternal student. Go to work.
And my mom was the same thing. Of course, I learned that from my mom, right? Growing up, I respected how hard they worked. I worked when I was 14. I worked when I was 15. I worked when I was 16. I've worked ever since, you know? And by the way, I also had work at home, which I think has gone away for a lot of parenting in today's world.
Yeah.
You know, I worked at home. I had like on the refrigerator with a magnet, there was a
chores.
list of chores.
Yeah.
And I got gold stars when I completed my chores. Remember the little gold sticky star?
Yeah.
Right? And the euphoria that I felt when my mom would say, "All right, go ahead, put a star on there." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I did my job. I get my $5 this week." You know what I mean? You know? But it taught me so much growing up. You know? So I 100% agree that I think, you know, Charlie's right. Kids are going to appreciate their parents more. And by the way, none of that labor did I enjoy. I'm sure you guys didn't enjoy your high school jobs, right? So what does that mean? That means that it's going to push you to do something different.
Absolutely.
It pushed me. I left to the military, and even the military was like, "Hey, buddy, you should probably go to school. Like, maybe you don't want to do this for 20 years." You know?
Yeah. And they're going to look at what reality really is, because we are at fault. I mean, I can speak for myself. I try to give my kids, my daughter, more than I've ever got when I was a kid, because you say, you know, I don't want them to struggle the way we did. Is that right?
Which it may hurt them
It
as
may
well.
hurt
Yeah.
them in the future, of course.
I think we all struggle with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You know?
I think I'm torn on that one. I think
Yeah.
it's a fun subject, but I'm torn on
I
it.
think
Hopefully
I
we'll
think
get
there
some
can be
remarks
limits.
and then we'll-
I think there can be limits. Personally, I think you should encourage hard work, 100%. But I think there should be limits. You know.
Yeah, I think I like when I was growing up, I got to work at 14. I had a worker's permit, but it was summer only work.
Yeah.
Like, and if you weren't going to summer school,
Right.
right? So I like that. I turned 14 in June 29th and that year. And immediately I got that job at the school board because my mom was a teacher. She hooked me up. And I got to work. I got to make a little money as a 14-year-old, you know, for the summer. But that was enough. And then when school started, I couldn't have the job anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was 16 when you got to work
Yeah.
during school hours.
Yeah, and then schools
Or
used
school
to do
time,
that.
I
Work
should say.
experience
Work
and all that.
experience. I used to have it. I remember
I had that
when
till
I
my
drove the
senior
bus
year.
for Chippendales. For the little Chippendale shows, I used to drive the bus. It was like,
I
I
don't know how
used to put
serious
powder.
that
You used to put powder on them too. No, wasn't that part of the gig? That was part of the gig.
I'm not gonna say.
That's where you got your sweet Chuck
There you
moniker.
fishnet shirts. All right, guys, we've been at this for about an hour, and we're going to cut it today. I hope that you truly enjoyed the show. Next time we do this show, if these guys even want to come back on camera again, we're going to go over federal funding cuts to universities. I like that topic. I really want to dig in on that topic.
That's a good one.
I want to go over Christian nationalism influences in politics. I want to talk about that because I'm a big believer in it, and I'm Jewish, by the way. So, you know, like we said earlier, I believe that religion plays a major part in a country's success or anybody's success, even a family's success. So imagine an entire country.
Absolutely.
And I also want to go over terrorists. We'll see you guys next week.
juicy.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
You're welcome, man.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Had a good time.